Peppa Goes to Scotland. One day, Peppa, George, Mummy and Daddy Pig set off for Scotland in their camper van.
Hooray!
It was a long journey and Peppa sang all the way.
We're going to Scotland, we're going to Scotland in our camper van.
Soon the sat-nav started singing along as well.
We're going to Scotland.
Until finally,
We have arrived in Scotland,
announced the sat-nav.
Hooray!
Cheered Peppa and George.
Look, Daddy,
Said Peppa, pointing at the top of a hill.
there's a castle.
Wow!
Shall we go and see it? Asked Daddy Pig.
Yes!
Said Peppa and George. They couldn't wait to explore.
Yes!
Said Mummy Pig. She couldn't wait to get out of the camper van. At the entrance to the castle, Peppa and her family met Mr. Stag. "Welcome to the best castle in Scotland," he said proudly. "I, Mr. McStag, will show you around, but first you must wear these." Mr. McStag held up some kilts.
Wow!
I love my kilt,
Said Peppa.
How's yours, Daddy?
"It's a little draughty," said Daddy Pig. Mr. McStag showed them round the castle. He took them to the throne room and up a secret staircase. "Ooh!" called Peppa, listening for her echo. "Ooh!" her echo replied. Then Mr. McStag told them about a mysterious creature that was said to live in the loch nearby. "But no one knows if it is real or a made-up story," he said.
Monster! Roar!
Yelled George.
Thank you for showing us the best castle in Scotland,
Said Peppa as they waved goodbye to Mr. McStag.
Monster now!
Asked George.
We'll look for the monster tomorrow, George,
Said Mummy Pig. It's time for bed now. Luckily, George was just as excited about sleeping in the camper van. The next morning, Peppa and her family sailed out onto the loch with their guide, Miss Rabbit.
Is the monster real?
Asked Peppa.
No one's seen it in all my years working here,
Said Miss Rabbit. Look, gasped Daddy Pig. There's the monster,
That's just a branch, Daddy,
said Peppa. Oh, yes, said Daddy Pig, a little embarrassed. Peppa pointed to the other end of the log.
But that looks like the monster.
She said.
OK, said Miss Rabbit, I'll take us over there. Hold on tight, everyone.
Miss Rabbit zoomed the boat over to the other side of the loch. But when they got closer, Peppa realised she hadn't seen the monster, just some rocks poking out of the water.
Oh,
She sighed.
is that it over there?
Asked Mummy Pig, pointing back to the far side of the loch. Miss Rabbit turned the boat round and zoomed back the way they'd come. But when they got there, all they could see were a few plants in the water. Oh, said Mummy Pig. Soon Miss Rabbit was zooming the boat round and round in circles all over the loch.
There it is, I'm sure of it. No, there it is. It's definitely over there. I think we should head back now, said Miss Rabbit. We're all getting a bit dizzy.
Miss Rabbit started to turn the boat around. As she did so, George, who had been sitting quietly the whole time, suddenly spotted something behind them.
Monster!
called George as loudly as he could.
Monster! Roar!
But everyone was too tired to look round.
We've stopped looking now, George,
said Mummy Pig.
I don't think there's a monster here after all.
All the way back home, George had lots of fun talking to the monster who was following along behind them. No one else noticed a thing.
Roar!
Said George.
Roar, roar, roar!
When Miss Rabbit docked the boat, everyone stepped out onto the jetty. George waved goodbye to the monster.
Who are you waving at, George?
Asked Mummy Pig.
Monster friend! Monster friend!
Said George, jumping up and down. Everyone looked over and saw the monster.
Shiver me timbers!
Gasped Miss Rabbit. I didn't think it existed.
Wow!
Gasped Peppa, Daddy and Mummy Pig. Just then, the monster dived down into the water and made a huge splash. Everybody got soaked. Everyone was very wet, but they were all very happy. Not only had they seen the monster, it had also made them lots of
muddy puddles!
Cheered Peppa, jumping up and down. Peppa and George love Scotland. Scottish muddy puddles are the best. Peppa Pig. Peppa in space. It was Space Day at Playgroup. Peppa and her friends were very excited. Does anyone know what space is? Asked Madame Gazelle.
Space is a physical universe beyond the Earth's atmosphere,
said Edmund Elephant. Edmund was a bit of a clever clogs.
Wow!
That's right, Edmund, said Madame Gazelle, and today we are going to talk about something you'll find in space. The moon! Shouted all the children. Yes, said Madame Gazelle.
Can I live on the moon?
Asked Danny Dog. It is possible, replied Madame Gazelle, but you would need to take oxygen, water, and lots of other things with you.
Can you jump in muddy puddles on the moon?
Asked Peppa. No, said Madame Gazelle. There is no rain to make puddles.
What can we do on the moon then?
Asked Peppa. You'll soon find out, said Madame Gazelle, because today we are going to the moon, shouted Pedro Pony. Not exactly, said Madame Gazelle. We're going to the space station. Oh, sighed the children. At the museum you will train to be astronauts, said Madame Gazelle, and see what it's like to walk on the moon.
Wow!
Wow! Gasped the children. Miss Rabbit arrived to take everyone to the Space Museum.
Hooray!
Really, we should be going there in a moon buggy, said Danny. Not a bus.
How long till we get there?
Asked Peppa. As long as it takes you to finish your apple, replied Miss Rabbit.
I finished my apple,
said Susie Sheep.
Does that mean we're there?
How about we sing a song for Miss Rabbit, suggested Madame Gazelle. Something like... But before Madame Gazelle could finish, all the children started to sing. We're going to the moon, will we get there soon? And they sang it to Miss Rabbit all the way to the museum. When When they arrived at the museum, the children were met by a real astronaut, Grampy Rabbit. "Hello there, fellow astronauts," he boomed. "Our space training mission today will take us to the moon.
Wow.
The ride may be bumpy, but it will be worth it when you get to see what it's like to walk on the moon." "Hooray!" cheered the children. The children put on their special spacesuits and boots as quickly as they could. "It's time to hop on board our spacecraft," called Grampy Rabbit when they were ready. "5, 4, 3, 2, 1... Blast off!" cheered all the little astronauts together. Grampy Rabbit and the children zoomed off on their training mission. On their way to the moon, Grampy Rabbit told the children all about the different planets in the solar system.
Wow.
"There's Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and the dwarf planet Pluto," he said. "Robots have landed on Mars, but no one else has done so yet." George was listening very carefully. "Mars," he whispered to himself. "We have landed on the moon," said Grampy Rabbit. "Now, my little astronauts, it's time for you to see what it's like to walk on the moon. Just take one small step out of the spacecraft and one..." Peppa and her friends all took giant leaps out of the spacecraft wearing Grampy Rabbit's anti-gravity rubber bands. The children had so much fun bouncing up and down with the anti-gravity rubber bands. They sang a song over and over again. "Listen to our space tune, we're going to the moon." "Wow!" gasped Peppa, bouncing over Madame Gazelle's head. "Walking on the moon is great, but jumping up and down on it is even better." "It's time to get down to Earth now, children," called Grampy Rabbit. "Oh," sighed the children. When they arrived back on Earth, the children were sad. "Remember, children, your adventure isn't really over," said Grampy Rabbit. "It's just the beginning. If you keep training, you can be real astronauts like me one day."
Wow.
"Yay! We're going to the moon!"
sang the children, and they sang it on the bus all the way back to playgroup.
"Space is amazing, Daddy,"
said Peppa that night.
"I want to be an astronaut so I can jump up and down on the moon every day."
But George had set his sights on somewhere else.
"Mars,"
he whispered. "Ah," said Daddy Pig. "Are you going to be the first piggy on Mars, George?" George nodded his head and smiled. That night, George dreamt he had gone into space with Peppa, and they were the first little piggies ever to jump up and down on Mars. The end. Peppa Pig Peppa learns French. The phone rings at Peppa's house. It is Monsieur Donkey. He is speaking French. Luckily, Mummy Pig can speak French.
Wow.
He asked if little Delphine Donkey could visit us, says Mummy Pig. Delphine is Peppa's pen pal. Peppa and her family arrive at the railway station.
That's Delphine's train,
says Peppa excitedly. Last stop, all change terminus, to Le Monde Descent, shouts Miss Rabbit, the train driver. Delphine gets off the train. Monsieur Donkey gets off too. He is carrying an enormous case.
Hello, Delphine,
says Peppa.
Bonjour, Peppa,
says Delphine Doggy. Peppa, bonjour means hello in French, says Mummy Pig. Monsieur Donkey drops the enormous case on the ground. Bonjour, Monsieur Donkey, says Daddy Pig. My goodness, is that huge case Delphine's?
Yes, Delphine has brought a few little things for her visit, says Monsieur Donkey. Things you do not have over here. Cheese, bread, tomatoes.
Monsieur Donkey loads the huge case on top of Peppa's car. It is very heavy.
Au revoir, Delphine. I will be back to pick you up tomorrow night, says Monsieur Donkey.
Au revoir, Papa, says Delphine.
Peppa,
au revoir means goodbye in French, explains Mummy Pig.
Wow.
After dinner, it's time to go to bed. Peppa and Delphine want to share a bed. Good night, little ones, says Daddy Pig.
Dormez bien,
whispers Mummy Pig.
Peppa, dormez bien means sleep well in French.
Peppa and Delphine can't sleep.
I'm not sleepy at all,
says Peppa.
Let's sing a little song to make us sleepy, says Delphine. Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez-vous, sonne les matines, ding dang dong,
sings Delphine. Delphine's French song has sent Peppa and George to sleep. The next day, Delphine visits Peppa's playground.
Madame Gazelle, this is my French friend Delphine,
says Peppa.
She sang a French song last night. Can we teach her an English song?
How about the Bing Bong song? Suggests Danny Dog. Madame Gazelle plays her guitar.
Oh, we're playing a tune and we're singing a song with a bing and a bong and a bing. Bong, bing, boo, bing, bong, bing, bing, bong, bingly, bongly, boo,
sings Madame Gazelle.
Bong, bing, boo, bing, bong, bing, bing, bong, bingly, bongly, boo,
sing the children. Delphine has learned lots of new English words. Bing, bong, bingly, bungly, and boo. The end.
Hi kids, did you have fun watching this video? Then like and subscribe for more.